Hey, Assalamu alaikum. Let's understand about the anhedonic stress, depression, and the anxiety. So, what is the anhedonic thing? Let's understand about that. Anhedonic input is the xenobiotic. Xenobiotic means the environment. Whenever you are interacting with the environment, remember about that thing. Your brain continuously interacting with the environment. So, the anhedonic input is basically is not. It is hedonic in the previous time when you will begin. So what is the anhedonic? First of all, we will understand about that. Basically, the anhedonic input means your brain will not desire for that things, but continuously knocking your brain, and you receiving that all anhedonic input rather than the hedonic input. So why? Let's understand about that. For example, you don't want to listen the music, but you want to you have not any other activity, so then you are listening forcefully the music, you are addiction, so you don't want to addict because for example the smoking is very bad, but you are not also quitting because that is difficult. Even you want it, but even you don't want it. Basically, you are between the both phenomena, like the desire and the rejection. So in this way, your brain basically required these things. Basically, anhedonic input mean you don't like that things, but continuously enter in your brain. For example, the high temperature or the low temperature, but not moderate. In this way, your brain will not want it. On the other hand, important things, that is the chronically knocking of the anhedonic input will lead to cause depression, anxiety, stress. For example, you want to drink the alcohol because you are addict, but after the drinking of the alcohol, you feel anxiety, stress, depression. So what is the story behind it? Let's understand about that. Basically, the dopamine is the neurotransmitter. Whenever you will drink the alcohol, release the dopamine. For example, the alcohol drinking, the glucose intake, the sugar, refined sugar, and the overeating. On the other hand, the listening music, pornography, a lot more things, basically which that trigger the more neurotransmitter dopamine in your brain and serotonin, norepinephrine and epinephrine also. So basically these will lead to activate the neurotransmitter dopamine, basically that all these things. For short, to understand, the dopamine is the pleasure neurotransmitter, will give the pleasure, relaxation, happiness, and in this way the dopamine, when released, it will be bound with the dopamine receptor to trigger the excitation of the neurons. So the whole body will relax. But with the passage of time, whenever you will become addict with the sugar, with the glucose, with the pornography content, nudity, etc. In this way, whenever you will basically want these things, basically, in this way, you are continuously releasing of the dopamine. When you will release the dopamine, so in this way, the dopamine will bind with the receptor, the dopamine receptor. In this way, the dopamine receptor will exhaust like the insulin resistance. Same function. So the insulin resistance is basically the receptor will not bind with the insulin. So the dopamine also not bind with the dopamine receptor, but it is rushing and releasing of the neurotransmitter, but not bind. When not bind, so the excitation will not occur. So you will not get the pleasure, not happiness. Not so. In this way, you will feel very, very depressive, stress, anxiety, depression, because you are not relaxing by the drinking of the alcohol, by the pornography content, watching again and again, because the previous time you was releasing too much neurotransmitter dopamine and the affinity with the receptor was too much high. But no, that is not going too high. That is a problem. So how to reverse it? That is the major topic we will understand. But first of all, we will understand further. In this way, the dopamine receptor not function properly. So you should give the rest to the dopamine neurotransmitter binding with the receptor. So you should give the rest. How to give the rest? For recovery, the dopamine receptor. To increase the affinity with the neurotransmitter dopamine binding with the receptor. When increase the affinity to reverse the all desire, and in this way you will want to get the desire, but you don't want to get the desire of the again alcohol drinking, again everything. So that you should dopamine fasting. with the dopamine fasting, you should change your lifestyle. How to change the lifestyle? For example, the previous time you are not exercising, you are not ketogenic diet, you are not you are not caloric restriction, you are not sleeping too much, you are feeling the frustration, and you are getting the desire, and you are getting the pleasure due to the alcohol, due to the smoking, due to the cocaine, due to the marijuana, cannabinoids, and that all addiction will lead to stimulate more and more dopamine with the next dose, and you will increase the dose for increase the dopamine receptor as a previous experience, but the dopamine receptor will be resist, and in this way the dopamine will not bind, so the excitation will not occur. In this way, important things you should need to understand. The important thing is that you should stop the releasing of the dopamine neurotransmitter. How it is possible? That is the dopamine fasting. So let's understand about that. Basically, you should stop the dopamine neurotransmitter release due to the quit the pornographic content, quit the nudity, quit the masturbation, quit the other sexual activity. Don't watch the nudity. Don't listen the music for several days. Even quit the music, because music basically also increase the dopamine release. On the other hand, don't eat the sugar, and don't eat everything which that is releasing and you are getting the pleasure in the previous time, but this time you are getting the more stress, depression, disorder like the neural degeneration and a lot more brain disease like Parkinson disease, Huntington disease, bipolar disorder, a lot more things like the Alzheimer disease. Anyhow, the neurodegeneration, the neuroplasticity will not work, the memory loss and the brain disorder. So in this way, you should basically the dopamine, you should stop the releasing of the dopamine. How it is possible? Basically, I have already told you the stop of the watching all pornographic content and a lot of nudity. Anyhow, on the other hand, the basically quit the alcoholism, quit the sexual activity, and stop the drinking of the soda water, refined sugar and the carbohydrate, basically which that also, and stop the overeating while the caloric restriction. So anyhow, this was the hedonic input, but whenever you are continuously increasing the hedonic input potential, in this way you are releasing the neurotransmitter for creating the previous experience, but that is the positive feedback mechanism. In this way you require more and more dose of the alcohol, more dose of the drug like the medication, for example the amphetamine. In this way, this is the all things is clear. So what should you do? This is the dopamine fasting, and what should you do as a reverse this dopamine neurotransmitter resistance clearance, and in this way the dopamine work again, and you should shift the life from this addiction to the another addiction which that is healthy. That addiction was not healthy, but this addiction which that I will give the suggestion which that is healthy, but this is not addiction because you can quit easily, like quit the carbohydrate intake like the brown sugar and the refined sugar, the white sugar, all type of the complex carbohydrate which that spike the insulin while suppress the growth hormone, when suppress the growth hormone, which that basically suppress the growth hormone or decline the growth hormone, will not work for the brain neurogenesis and the synthesis of the dopamine. And remember, the neuroplasticity, neurogenesis and the neural function, the brain function will not properly work. And in this way, due to the increase of the glucose intake will lead to decrease the growth hormone due to the spike of the insulin. So you should buffer the insulin. How to buffer the insulin? Stop the intake of the refined sugar, stop the carbohydrate, but you can start the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet means the high fat containing short chain and long chain omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acid containing the all fat soluble vitamin, and which that basically is the low level of the protein but increase the level of the fat but remain caloric restriction. That is important. You should remain with the caloric restriction, which that is important. Caloric restriction is too much important. Remember about that thing. and you should ketogenic diet for the low caloric diet with a ketogenic diet, and that will work to spike the growth hormone while buffer the insulin, and the growth hormone will work for your brain health. Anyhow, in this way the fat will be dropped, all things will be dropped, but we are not just understanding about that things, we are just understanding about the fixation of the anhedonic stress and anxiety depression. So in this way the fasting also work for it to suppress the insulin spike, while the spike of the growth hormone will work for the brain neurogenesis. In this way your brain function properly. In this way the neurotransmitter dopamine will be stored. Anyhow, this storage of the dopamine will release slowly, and that is known as the buffering of the dopamine. The buffering of the dopamine is too much important because the slow releasing of the dopamine will bind with the dopamine receptor slowly and excite the nerve impulse slowly, rather than the addiction will increase and spike the neurotransmitter dopamine, will lead to cause dopamine resistance, and the dopamine resistance ultimately lead to cause stress, depression, anxiety, stress, everything, and frustration. Anyhow, fasting, the ketogenic diet, and the next one which that you don't want also. Basically this is the anhedonic input, but this is the beneficial, and later on your body will clear up from the depression. This anhedonic input is basically which that is lead to reverse the stress and depression and anxiety, like the exercise. Whenever you don't want to exercise and you want to relax and you want to sleep, you want to basically watch the pornographic content, you want to everything, but you want to relax and you don't want to go to the gym for the exercise because this is the hard work. So you should go. And in this, whenever you will work out and break your muscle, and whenever you will tired, fatigue, so during the rest time, the dopamine release slowly will lead to relax your body. Even the painkiller neurotransmitter also release lead to pain kill, and in this way relaxation will occur. The all energy will consume in the form of the workout. That is the anhedonic input will give the relaxation, like the ketogenic diet, fasting, and the dopamine resistance due to the exercise, because that all things you don't want it. For example, the calorie restriction, you also don't want it, but this is the healthy and beneficial. And the last one is that which that also you don't want to sleep, because you want to watch the pornographic content, you want to watch the film, you want to watch the all type of things, like you want to drink the alcohol, you want to do every activity like party, games, and playing the game throughout the night time, which that basically you should sleep, deep sleep after the exercise. That recovery will occur, and in this way your brain cognitive power will increase, and impairment of the brain which that will reverse due to the synaptogenesis. And on the other hand, the neuromuscular junction will increase. In this way, your brain will function properly. The diet with the ketogenic diet, the micronutrient is your concern, like the zinc, magnesium, potassium, sodium, and the other type of the mineral which that is important for your normal function of your brain. And basically, it is, some people say that is the coenzyme, but basically it is the mineral. It is electrolyte which that balance the water inside of the brain and outside of the brain in the blood circulatory system. On the other hand, the important thing is that you should drink water more, but with the electrolyte for the retaining and maintenance of the water. The retention of the water is so much important, rather than the drink only water to excrete the water. Even the already electrolyte will deplete more. So you should eat the green vegetable to consume that all things that is the micronutrient for increase your health. And in this way, whenever you will increase your health, so in this way your brain will function properly. Remember, the vitamin, also the fat soluble vitamin is important, and it is soluble, fat soluble, and it will be absorbed due to the ketogenic diet. And the ketogenic diet itself containing a lot more vitamin, like vitamin D, which that are present in the, for example, the fat the brown fat, and the basically the different type of fat like butter, cheese. And on the other hand, the vitamin E, vitamin A, vitamin K, and vitamin basically all vitamin is requirement. And in this way, that all vitamin which that come from the ketogenic diet, and you can also add the supplementation. But important thing you should need to understand, the best thing is that the water soluble vitamin you require more. So you should add the chicken, you should add the beef, the meat, which that give the boost of the vitamin B complexes like the vitamin B12, which that also give the health of your brain. So also the vitamin C requirement, so lemon is very important, and the vitamin C supplementation, which that also antioxidation and decrease the stress, depression due to the cognitive power increase of your brain, neurogenesis, neuroplasticity. So all these things will occur. So remember, in summarization, the hedonic input, which that is the drug which that you want after the taking of that drugs, or like the glucose is also drug, you can say that. And that basically after that consuming, you feel the frustration, anxiety, stress, but you want that again. That is a positive feedback. But the anhedonic input for reverse the depression, anxiety, and stress, which that is hidden pleasure and the hidden beneficial effect, is the anhedonic input, which that is the xenobiotic like the ketogenic diet, caloric restriction, sunlight exposure, the cold and hot shock, but the minor shock. On the other hand, the fasting, and basically the good sleep, the exercise, and the calorie restriction, which that give the more and more benefit. And the all essential and non-essential amino acid you can add, but the amino acid basically is the protein. So with a ketogenic diet, you should decrease the level of the protein, like the 50 gram protein, while the 75 gram the fat, while the carbohydrate you can stop it. And in this way, basically important things you should need to understand, that basically you should basically buffer the insulin, and buffering of the insulin is very important, and that is why the growth hormone will spike. That will lead to decrease the stress, anxiety, and depression. How it is possible? I will example. For example, the children, basically is the younger person, less anxiety, depression. For example, the baby, which that zero depression. Why zero depression? Because the growth hormone is peak level. So with the passage of time, the growth hormone will decline, but you can spike with a different activity, which that I have discussed. So see in the next video. For this time, bye. I hope you can reverse the depression, anxiety, and stress, because a lot of questions about these things. So I hope you have cleared the concept about the hedonic and anhedonic input. Basically, the hedonic is the not hedonic, while the anhedonic is the actually hedonic and give the relaxation, decrease the stress, depression, anxiety, and other disorder like the brain disorder. So see in the next video. For this time, bye. Allah Hafiz.